In the heart of the Igbo land, nestled between lush green hills and winding rivers, lay the prosperous kingdom of Umudike. The kingdom was ruled by the wise and wealthy Eze Obinna, a man known far and wide for his shrewd business acumen and immense fortune. Eze Obinna had but one child, a daughter named Adaeze, whose birth was heralded with great joy and celebration throughout the kingdom. From a young age, Adaeze displayed a sharp mind and an uncanny understanding of wealth and trade. While other children played in the field, Adaeze would sit by her father's side, listening intensely to his discussions with traders and advisors. She learned the intricacy of managing the kingdom's vast resources, showing a remarkable aptitude for investment and savings. Her father often remarked that Adaeze had a mind as sharp as a merchant's blade and a heart as cold as a northern wind. The villagers were fascinated by the young princess. They marveled at her intelligence and her ability to memorize the details of every transaction her father made. However, they also whispered about her peculiar habits. Adaeze was known to save even the smallest piece of cloth or the tiniest bead, refusing to waste anything. Her frugality, though admired by some, was often the subject of hushed conversations among the villagers. As the years passed, Adaeze's reputation for stinginess grew. She wore the same simple dresses, mended and patched countless times, and ate the most basic of meals, often leftovers from the royal kitchen. Despite her vast wealth, Adaeze refused to indulge in the luxuries that her status afforded her. This peculiar behavior puzzled many, but none dared question the daughter of Eze Obinna. The day came when Eze Obinna, sensing the end of his days, gathered his daughter by his side. Uzoma, his adopted daughter, was in her grandmother's place at the time, so he spoke to Adaeze in a voice weakened by age, but still full of the wisdom that had guided the kingdom for decades. Adaeze, my child, he began, his eyes filled with both love and concern. You have learned so much about wealth and its power, but remember, true power lies not just in holding wealth, but in how it is used. Adaeze nodded, her expression resolute. Father, I understand the importance of wealth. I promise to protect and grow our fortune. Eze Obinna sighed, sensing the iron will of his daughter. Remember, Adaeze, a kingdom thrives not only on gold alone, but on the well-being of its people. You must not forget your sister Uzoma. She is a wise lady. You must work hand in hand with her. Use your wisdom as the first daughter to balance everything. Shortly after this conversation, Eze Obinna passed away, leaving Adaeze as the sole heir of his immense fortune. At 21, she ascended to the throne, becoming the queen of Umudike. The villagers hoped that their new queen, with her sharp mind and business acumen, would lead them into an era of prosperity and growth. However, Adaeze's reign soon took a different turn. True to her nature, she continued to live frugally, investing the kingdom's wealth in various ventures that only increased her wealth. She refused to spend money on the lavish ceremonies and public works that her father had endorsed. The villagers, once hopeful, began to see the first signs of discontent. As Queen Adaeze's wealth grew, so did her reputation as a misery ruler. She became known as the Wicked Witch of Umudike, a title that spoke of both fear and disdain. The stories of her stinginess spread far and wide, reaching even the neighboring kingdoms. Despite her growing wealth, Adaeze's personal life was marked by the same frugality. She married Eze, a wealthy nobleman from a distant land. Together, they amassed a fortune that rivaled the greatest kings, but their lifestyle remained stark and simple, marked by Adaeze's obsessive thriftiness. They lived on leftover fruits and broken biscuits, and Adaeze would often argue with shoemakers to get a free bone for their dogs. Adaeze's peculiar habit extended to her personal belongings. She sewed her first underwears and continued to sew them. She wore the same black dress until it was threadbare, and she never used hot water, considering it an unnecessary expense. The people of Umuduke watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as the queen's wealth grew while her generosity dwindled. They whispered stories of her stinginess, each tale more bizarre than the last. Yet, despite her miserly ways, Adaeze ruled with a firm hand, ensuring that her investments kept the kingdom's coffers full. Little do they know, the true test of Adaeze's reign was yet to come. The villagers gathered in the town square, dressed in their finest attire to witness the coronation of their young queen. Traditional drummers played rhythmic beats, and dancers performed in vibrant costumes, celebrating the dawn of a new era. However, Adaeze's first decree as queen left the villagers in shock. She announced significant cutback in royal spending, cancelling the annual festival that had been a cherished tradition for generations. Instead, she invested the money saved into trading ventures and land acquisition. Her vision was clear: to make Umuduke the wealthiest kingdom in the land, even if it meant sacrificing the joy and comfort of her people. Adaeze's frugality extended beyond royal finances. She lived in the same modest chambers she had occupied before her ascension, refusing to move into the more opulent quarters reserved for the monarch. Her meals remained simple, and she continued to dress in her old mended clothes. The royal court, accustomed to a life of luxury, struggled to adapt to the queen's stringent measures. The people of Umuduke soon left the impact of Adaeze's policies. Public works projects were halted, and funding for celebration and festivals was drastically reduced. The once vibrant and lively kingdom grew sober, and a sense of unease settled over the villagers. They whispered among themselves, questioning the wisdom of their new queen. Despite the growing discontent, Adaeze's investment began to bear fruit. The kingdom's coffers swelled with gold and silver, and her reputation as a shrewd businesswoman spread far and wide. Traders and merchants from distant lands sought her counsel, eager to learn from the wicked witch of Umuduke. Adaeze reveled in her success, believing that her frugality and discipline were the key to her kingdom's prosperity. She took pride in her growing fortune, often spending hours in the treasury, meticulously counting and recounting the gold coins. Her obsession with wealth became all-consuming, overshadowing the need and the well-being of her people. Eze, Adaeze's husband, watched with great concern as his wife's stinginess deepened. He admired her intellect and business acumen, but he also saw the toll her frugality was taking on the kingdom. Despite his attempts to cancel her, Adaeze remained steadfast in her ways, convinced that her approach was the only path to greatness. The villagers' discontent continued to grow, manifesting in small acts of defiance. Some refused to pay their tithes, while others openly criticized the queen in the marketplace. The once united kingdom began to fracture, and the seeds of rebellion were sown. One day, as Adaeze was inspecting the marketplace, she overheard a group of villagers discussing the plight of her father's adopted daughter, who was struggling to make ends meet. They spoke of how her husband had died and she had become a widow. And since then, she has fallen in hard times. However, her son Ikenna had fallen gravely ill, and Uzoma was unable to afford the necessary treatment. The villagers' plea for compassion and aid fell on deaf ears as Adaeze dismissed their concern. She believes that everyone should fend for themselves and that her role was to protect and grow the kingdom's wealth, not to squander it on charity. Even if very well known to Uzoma was her father's adopted child and was also loved by her father and the kingdom for her services to humanity, but Adaeze didn't mind all that. In desperate need of assistance, Uzoma, driven by mother's love and desperation, decided to seek help from her estranged sister. She gathered her strength and made her way to the palace, hoping that Adaeze's heart would soften upon seeing her own flesh and blood. As Uzoma reached the grand gates of the palace, she was filled with a mix of hope and apprehension. She prayed that her sister would remember the bonds they once shared and extend a helping hand. But Adaeze's heart, hardened by years of frugality and obsession with wealth, was not easily swayed. The encounter between the two sisters would set the stage for a tragic and heart-wrenching tale, one that would test the limit of Adaeze's stinginess and the strength of familiar bonds. Little did Adaeze know the choices she would make in the coming days would have far-reaching consequences, shaping the future of Umudike and leaving a legacy that would be remembered for generations to come. A desperate plea as Uzoma entered the grand palace. Memories of her childhood with Adaeze flooded back. As Uzoma entered the grand palace, memories of her childhood with Adaeze flooded back. She remembered their days of playing under the mango tree, their laughter echoing through the fields. Those days seemed so distant now, buried under the weight of Adaeze's obsession with wealth. With every step towards the throne room, Uzoma's heart beat faster. She had no idea how her sister would receive her after all these years, after their father's demise. When Uzoma finally stood before Adaeze, she saw the years had not softened her sister's features. Adaeze sat and proud, her face devoid of the warmth Uzoma remembered. "Sister," Uzoma began, her voice trembling, "I have come to you in the time of need. My son Ikenna is gravely ill and I cannot afford the treatment he needs. I beg you, help us." Adaeze's eyes narrowed and she studied Uzoma for a long moment. "Uzoma," she said coldly, "we all have our burdens to bear. I have made it clear that my wealth is not to be squandered. I cannot make exceptions, even for family." Uzoma felt a pang of despair, but pressed on. "Please, Adaeze, he is your nephew. Have you no compassion left in your heart?" Adaeze's face remained impassive. "Compassion does not fill the coffers, Uzoma. I have responsibilities to this kingdom that far outweigh personal sentiment." With that, she dismissed her sister. Uzoma left the palace with a heavy heart. Her hope shattered. Desperation had led her to drastic measures. She decided to steal food and medicine for her son, hoping to keep him alive just a little longer. But then, Uzoma's theft did not go unnoticed. He was soon noticed and then caught and brought before the queen, Adaeze. The news spread quickly throughout Umudike, and a large crowd gathered in the palace courtyard to witness the punishment of the queen's own sister. Uzoma stood before Adaeze, her eyes pleading. "I did what I did for my son. My son was ill. Please, sister, show me mercy." But Adaeze's heart remained cold. She picked up a tuber of yam and before the gathered crowd, broke it in half. "As I break this yam, so do I break all ties with you, my sister. She has brought shame upon our family and our kingdom. From this day forward, she is no longer my king. Let the villagers treat her as they see fit." The crowd gasped, and some wept for Uzoma's fate. She was paraded throughout the street, her shame on display for all to see. Humiliation and broken, Uzoma and her son Ikenna were shunned by the villagers. Without help or compassion, they soon succumbed to death and illness, dying alone and forgotten. The villagers of Umudike were horrified by Queen Adaeze's action. Her cold-heartedness towards her own sister and nephew was the final straw for many. Rumors of rebellion began to circulate, and the once loyal subjects started to turn against their queen. Despite the growing unrest, Adaeze remained oblivious. Consumed by her wealth and investment, her fortune continued to grow, but so did her isolation. She had no friends, no confidants, and her husband Ezechike had grown distant, unable to reconcile his love for Adaeze with her cruelty. One fateful day, Adaeze fell ill. True to her nature, she refused to spend money on a doctor, believing she will recover on her own. Days turned into weeks, and her condition worsened. Her once sharp mind grew foggy, and her body weakened. Ezechike pleaded with her to seek medical attention, but Adaeze remained stubborn. "I will not waste my money on such frivolities," she insisted. "I will recover in time." But time was not on Adaeze's side. Her illness grew more severe, and one night as she lay in her bed, she felt the cold grip of death loosening. Her final thoughts were not of her wealth anymore or her kingdom, but of her sister and her nephew, and the life she could have lived if she had only opened her heart. Her passing was met with mixed emotion in Umudike. Some mourned the loss of their queen, while others felt a sense of relief. The villagers hoped for a new beginning. The village elders gathered to discuss the future of the kingdom. They decided to use Adaeze's vast fortune to better the lives of the people. Her husband gave them their consent. They invested in public works, built schools and hospitals, and restored the annual festival that has once brought joy to Umudike. In honor of Uzoma and Ikenna, the elders established a fund to help those in need, ensuring that no one in the kingdom would ever suffer as they did. Adaeze's name was remembered, not for her wealth, but for the lesson her life had taught the people of Umudike. The kingdom flourished, and the villagers thrived under the new leadership. Generosity and compassion became the guiding principles of Umudike, and the story of the wicked witch of Umudike was told for generations as a cautionary tale about the peril of greed and the importance of love and kindness. And so the legacy of Queen Adaeze came to an end, but from the ashes of her reign, a bright, more compassionate kingdom emerged. The people of Umudike never forgot the lessons of the past, ensuring that their future was built on the foundation of empathy and generosity. The moral of the story is that sharing and kindness makes everyone happy, and that no matter the level of material things we are greedily keeping for ourselves and not sharing with others in need, one day, just one day, we all will leave them all and go back to our Maker, because no man lives forever. Vanity, all is vanity.